glass shatters, and it's like everything went in slow motion. And I remember kind of swaying in the car, and then the car kind of leaning to the left and slamming to the right, and I blacked out. And the next thing that I remember is opening my eyes in the ambulance and seeing can lights and not really knowing what's going on, still thinking that it's a dream, but things were stressful and it felt real. They're rushing me through the hallways of the hospital. I hear my brother's voice and I say, "John, is that you?" And he said, "Yes, Justin, it's gonna be okay."
Justin was non-weight bearing for 6 weeks, so he was in a wheelchair and wasn't supposed to use his shoulder or his ankle. The doctors had given him pain medication, and he ended up taking about 8 a day.
And they gave him opioids. They gave him hydrocodone and Percocet.
So my mom and I began to see specialist after specialist. The end conclusion was extremely disheartening. The answer was live with the pain. The thing that I was looking for was just relief. I didn't know how to deal with long-term pain. I entered into a state of depression, and instead of going and talking to people about that, I isolated myself. I needed to talk to people and say, "I'm really struggling, and this is not good news for me, and I don't know how to get through this." But instead, I tried to put it all on myself. I knew that there was something different that God wanted to do than just medicate. My dad was taking all sorts of medication, and normally they were in his bedroom, but one night I was up watching TV and they were in bed, and I look over by the coffee pot and I see the bottle of hydrocodone, which is the same medication that I took. I did it on my own. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't know the consequences of taking the medication. This began a process of about 2 to 3 years of addiction to pain medication. My quality of life was extremely low. I began to get sick. I wasn't taking it properly, so I began to lose weight. I had tried stopping so many times, but the pain of the withdrawals of not taking this medication was so great that I couldn't do it. I needed help. All I wanted was to get out. All I wanted was for the addiction to end. I didn't know how to tell anybody about it. I felt alone, and people were there for me, but I was feeling shame. I didn't want to talk to other people because ultimately I thought that would lead to me having to tell them that I was addicted to pain medication. So my isolation increased and my personality began to change. Before, I had hope. I was doing my very best to get through every single day, but now my sin's too great. How is God going to use this story for his glory now? Because I've ruined it and it's trash. Does God still love me even in this terrible sin? It's the first time I doubted my own salvation, and I just continued in loneliness. I knew that I needed help. So I remember calling my dad broken, and I told him everything. For the first time, I wasn't alone. Somebody else was there with me. Somebody else knew.
I just remember being not angry at him at all, but real sympathetic.
My parents, they didn't shame me. They didn't condemn me. They listened, and they communicated that they were there for me. From that point, it began the process of recovery. First, I tried to do it with my parents' help, but I quickly found myself back because they didn't know how to lead me through overcoming addiction, and I didn't know how to overcome addiction. And I realized it was so much greater than just stop taking them. My pastor ended up encouraging me to see a counselor. That led me on a year of recovery with this counselor in a group that I was working with. Through my recovery time, I began to realize, even through this addiction, I have faith and belief in God, and I'm saved. And this sin that seems so great to me, that's causing so much shame in my life and making me feel like I'm a terrible person, didn't separate me from God, just like the sins before that didn't separate me from God. It's his love that holds me. It's his love that conquers all and that gives me the power to overcome sin, but also be forgiven. I can overcome addiction because Jesus has given me the power to overcome sin in my life. And I can push through this suffering because Jesus is with me through it all. It's from that foundation that I begin to realize this drug addiction is not who I am in Christ. Am I going to cope by self-medicating? Am I going to run away from it, thinking that it's all going to get better if I can just get away? Or am I going to run to Jesus and realize that this is a light, momentary affliction? And it's through that process of learning my identity in Christ in the midst of sin that I thought was too great that God began to give me hope again. I'm going to be celebrating 5 years of sobriety this year. God has been with me every step of that way.
God has been incredibly gracious to us in the things that Justin has walked through.
He has helped me through suffering that I didn't think I could ever get through. He is the source of victory. The story isn't about me. The story is about his redemption, redeeming me from something that was too much to handle, from suffering that would last a lifetime, to ultimately his glory that would be his story of redemption for others to hear.